Welcome everyone. It's my great pleasure to celebrate this International Midwives Day with you on behalf of the Council of Deans of Nursing and Midwifery, Australia and New Zealand. I'd like to begin by an acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners, Australia's First People, and their unbroken connection to country on which we meet today. And I pay my respects to their elders past, present, and their emerging generations. I extend my respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island peoples present with us today. I'm coming to you from the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. Never ceded, always was, and always will be Aboriginal land. The Council of Deans Nursing and Midwifery is the peak organisation that represents the deans and the heads of the schools of nursing and midwifery in universities that offer undergraduate and postgraduate programs in nursing and midwifery throughout Australia and New Zealand. My name is Kathleen Baird. I'm the chair of the Midwifery Advisory Group of the Council of Deans Nursing and Midwifery, and currently Professor of Midwifery and acting head of school at the University of Technology. It is now my absolute great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Midwife Melanie Briggs, who I will be interviewing today, who I have the great pleasure of interviewing today. Melanie, a little bit of background about Melanie. Melanie is an absolute trailblazer who is making a profound difference to the health of Indigenous mothers and babies in her region. Melanie is a descent of the Dagarol and Gumbaynggirr people. I hope I've said that correctly, Melanie. And as I said, is a midwife. Melanie was the first endorsed Aboriginal midwife in New South Wales and is one of only 2 endorsed Aboriginal midwives in Australia. In 2021, Melanie was awarded the UTS Health Alumni of the Year, and in 2022 was awarded the Hester Midwife of the Year in recognition for her tireless work to improve First Peoples maternal and infant health. Currently, Melanie is a senior midwife at the Waminda South Coast Aboriginal Women's Health and Welfare Corporation. And Melanie heads up the Mother and Baby Maternity Service, recognised as a model for closing the gap. Waminda is an Aboriginal-led and community-controlled model guided by the principles of self-determination. And Melanie is the linchpin of the maternity service, providing cultural guidance and leadership to other midwives and members of the research team. Melanie, welcome. It's a great pleasure to have you with us today. But so Melanie, can you tell us what it means to you to bring the evidence underpinning the midwifery profession to your current role?
Sure. So before I start, I'd like to acknowledge the lands that I'm on today, and the Wandi, Wandandian, Jerinja, Kulingadi and Wadi Wadi people, and pay my respects to my elders and respects to the lands on which we are on today. Never ceded, always was and always will be Aboriginal land. And I'm a proud Dharawal and Gumbaynggirr descendant, and I live on Marmarang lands on the south coast, also known as Ulladulla. And thank you for my beautiful introduction. And so evidence to me means that I can feel confident in knowing that the information I'm using in my practice is well informed and is evidence-based, absolutely first and foremost. And that it's safe for our women, especially when it comes to Aboriginal women in mainstream services. I like to ensure that the evidence that I am using is heavily researched by people who have a deep connection and understanding to what they're researching or their publications are. So either with lived experience or really, worked within that field. I really value because they live it and they understand that's that on the ground research. The steps that we've used to go from research to practice we've partnered with a national university, and we've gathered, the information and evidence of what is currently available, so literature reviews and what works and what doesn't work, and then targeting a group of people, and then consulting with our people, our mob, our consumers, our stakeholders who we work with, to get firsthand knowledge from their experiences, and and people who use midwifery services and provide maternity services in the hospital and in community. So it's really important to gather that information. And then once we did that, we identified gaps. So we did an analysis, and then we identified gaps in maternity services in our region. So it was very specific to our country. And we mapped out, so we did a mapping of all the services and, identifying what's current, and then asking community, well, what are you actually using and why don't you use these things? And then that then determines, how we move forward with solutions. So it's community-based solutions, and developing those with our people as an organisation. So it's definitely collectively the voices of our service, and our community members and our stakeholders, which it supports the movement for putting evidence into practice, and it underpins everything that we do. We make sure that it's safe for our women, culturally, clinically evident. It's all evidence-based. We've used this evidence for the last 5, 6 years, 7 years, I think it's been, to lobby to government, and also using their documents that they've developed. So, close the gap, Prime Minister close the gap reports, showing no outcomes, imported solutions. We want to be determining we want to create our evidence. We want to be the runners of what we're developing for our people.
Thank you, Mel. And I love the way you talk about, it's about the evidence, but it's also about including the experiences of the women and making sure whatever you do is culturally appropriate, which is so important, and what we've been fighting for a long time across the whole of midwifery is about women's experiences and culture. So my next question for you is, of course, as I said in the introduction, you're currently the midwifery manager of the service that you provide, the Mother and Babies Maternity Services Programme. Can you tell us about that service?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I work at an organisation called Waminda, and it is 40 years old next year. So I am the manager of the Mother and Baby Minga Gujaga Midwifery and Child and Family Program, and Birthing on Country manager. And we are led and governed by a board of 7 Aboriginal women. And then we're also led by an executive team that are all Aboriginal women except one. So the organisation is very much grounded in culture. Not my program, but the program that I work in sits within a bigger model, so the Waminda model, and there are approximately 32 programs within our organisation. And I guess the program that I work in, that was founded around 10 to 12 years ago within Waminda, and it's just grown ever since. So we look after, at any given time, maybe 40 to 80 women at one time, and we provide antenatal and postnatal care and birth support. So we're not the primary midwife as yet. We are in the process of becoming credentialed at our local hospital to be able to admit our women under our provider number, which has been one of the biggest challenges, but we are getting there, and I feel like it's very unknown in New South Wales, so it's quite new for us, and it's quite new for the hospital and the New South Wales Health. So we're working really hard together to make that happen. But Waminda is an amazing organisation, and our team, we are supported for our wellbeing. The framework in which we work is very much around, caring for each other, just embedding culture in everything that we do. And, as an Aboriginal woman, it's my responsibility to make sure that not just my responsibility myself, but, any Aboriginal woman in the organisation, it's we need to mentor our allies that come and work in the organisation, because we need to make sure that everyone is working safely and with cultural integrity.
Oh, thank you so much, Mel. It sounds like a wonderful place to work, and models that we should all be following wherever we work, and a lot we could learn. Are you able to share any improved outcomes or for mothers and babies who attend this service? Because you were saying at any one time you look after up to 40 to 80 mums and babies.
Yeah, look, I think since we've been on the research grant with the Molly Centre for the Building on Our Strengths National Research Grant, we've collected some data. Like, it's very raw data at the moment, so we're still in the process of putting that all together. But some of the smaller things that we have noticed is that women keep coming back, so that tells us that we're providing a safe service. And there is other choices in community for people to go and get their care, but they choose to come back to us because they know that we will provide high quality clinical care. So we've also found that I think it's very raw data. It was around 70 to 80% of our women were breastfeeding at birth. So we also have women who choose not to breastfeed, and that's okay. We have reduced our smoking rate in pregnancy. We've provided a brief intervention. We've also reduced the number of children being removed at birth by providing, services such as case management, family support workers, and we also have Aboriginal health practitioners in our team, and their role is so crucial in terms of providing that very deep cultural connections with our women, and the women will sometimes only come in to see them, and that's okay. Sometimes for the very first time, our women are being connected to culture in their pregnancy. And when myself and the other women in Aboriginal women in Waminda, we talk to them and we talk about their connections to their culture and what it actually means to them and their baby, and and then we do ceremony, and what does that means everything to that woman and that baby, because sometimes it's the first time, so it's very special, and those outcomes can't be measured. It's actually quite amazing to experience a mum and baby go through ceremony for the first time. We've had more vaginal births than cesarean sections, so that's amazing. We've had no stillbirths in the last 12 months, so that's a credit to our beautiful team and our organisation.
Congratulations, Mum. I think that's amazing outcomes, because the evidence, we're talking about evidence, is really clear that birth outcomes are far worse for Aboriginal women, and that you're making a huge difference in the work that you're doing, certainly. And I think that will go from strength to strength because of the amazing project you've got going on now around the government funding that's come to Waminda to develop a birth centre. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely, I would love to talk about the birth centre. So we have been lobbying to government for a very long time to have our own birth centre that's led by the Aboriginal women in community. And you know, there's always been that fear that, you know, birthing can only happen in a hospital setting, and you know, that's warranted. Absolutely, I understand that fear, but what we need to do is undo a lot of that. And you know, this birth centre is going to be a very safe place to have a baby. It'll be low risk birthing. Well, I don't even like to say low risk. It'll be category A ACM, consultation referral guidelines. It'll be, you know, if the woman is a B, and you know, there's lots of things that we've considered in terms of, you know, how do we meet the legislation to have our own birth centre. And there was lots of lobbying to government. We used international evidence from Canada, Netherlands, you know, around their home birthing, so the highest home birth country in the world, New Zealand. We've gathered a lot of evidence that supports freestanding birth centres and midwifery-led birth centres. I feel like the birth centre it's going to be the first of its kind, because it'll have everything. The birthing rooms, it'll also have ceremony space, it'll be a space for the aunties and the grandmothers to come and be the witness of traditional birthing. It'll be a place where we will just thrive in culture and in birthing again, and reclaiming, you know, the traditional ways in which we are meant to birth, with no intervention unless needed. And you know, it's absolutely going to be amazing. I just can't explain how amazing it's going to be. It's going to be amazing.
I think it's really exciting, Mel, and I think what it shows is you've taken the evidence and you're making it into reality, because you collected that evidence from other countries around the world, and you've used that to help you get the support and the funding that you needed to develop your birth centre, which is just a fantastic achievement, and just congratulations to
thank you. And also just an acknowledgement to, you know, Auntie Linda Burney, who's the first female Indigenous minister in this country, and you know, she advocated strongly, you know, for the rights of Aboriginal women to claim their birthing rights on country. So, you know, a big acknowledgement to her, and also the, you know, the executive leadership in our team, in our organisation. You know, they tirelessly lobbied, and it came to fruition at this, you know, federal election. So there's still a long way to go, but it's absolutely happening. So.
Look, it's been an absolute pleasure to I could chat to you for ages. To hear about, you know, the work that you've done, your leadership, your advocacy is so strong, your connection with community is so strong. And I think they're really important words for us to think about when we're thinking about evidence. All these other factors are really, really important too. And I think you've sent a beautiful message today for International Day of the Midwives, and you're absolutely living what you talk about, those important things around advocacy, culture, community, working with women, and respect. And I've learned a lot from chatting to you, so thank you so much for everything you do.